HU?
You know.
That's what I like to hear. Welcome, HU Class of 22, to the Memories of Home podcast. I'm Kambra, a freshman legal communications major, sports management minor from Tampa, Florida.
What's up, everybody? My name is Jalynn Borders, a freshman math major, business minor from Shelby, North Carolina.
Hey y'all, I'm Fearrington, a freshman nursing major, political science minor from Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Hi guys, I'm Jala Scott, a freshman human performance major, chemistry minor with a concentration in sports medicine from Mississippi.
Today we'll be talking about the word home and what it means to us. More specifically, we'll be focusing on what our relationship to home is, individually and collectively. So let me ask you all a question. Who misses home?
I do, a lot actually.
And what about home do you miss?
I miss the good soul food, my family, and sitting around the fireplace. And most of all, I miss those Friday night Shelby High School football games.
That's funny because to me, home is more about Carolina basketball and some good old sweet tea.
Well, I miss the country living, home-cooked southern meals, and spending quality time with my family. And I can't forget about my MSU Bulldogs, Hell State.
That sounds all right, but when I think of home, I think of palm trees, the beach, and of course my Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, clearly many people have their own ideas about home based on their own experiences, but each of their experiences lead to an overall collective memory in the African American community.
That's so true. For instance, many of us in the Black community share similar memories of family reunions. I'm sure you all can relate to having your grandmother's cooking at dinner table, am I right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting because in many of the readings I've done, a lot of scholars took the time to make that their field of study and focus on collective memory and how different groups are influenced by their interactions, events, traditions, and so much more.
In these past few weeks, we've each been reading a lot of scholarly journals related to home. From these readings, how do you guys think scholars conceptualize family gatherings and traditions with memories of home, both individually and collectively?
You know, a lot of scholars conceptualize family gatherings based on the history of the family as it relates to society and community as a whole. Anna Maureen, in her article in the Praise of Black Family Reunions, talked about the origin of Black tradition that was founded by our ancestors and the generations before us. Maureen, along with many others, gave homage to the civil rights movement for starting the tradition of family gatherings. The movement produced incentive and motivation for Black families to connect with each other, building unity to pass on oral traditions and create a community within the family. There are so many things that I can list off that I've learned at family reunions.
And another way of thinking about how scholars conceptualize family gatherings and traditions with memories of home is with the article by Orrin Myers and his co-authors. They are all scholars in the field of memory studies and came together and found that the media has an enormous influence on shaping of collective recollections due to its wide reach and pervasive messages, their adept use of narrative forms, and their mnemonic collaboration with other social agents. They published their findings in their article, Setting the Collective Memory Agenda, examining mainstream media influence on individuals' perceptions of the past.
When I read that same article, I learned that the media can even influence families and their traditions. For example, if the family is together and everyone is watching TV or all laughing at a photo or video on social media, the memory for them will involve some aspect of media. One of the main points these scholars bring up is that individual and collective memory cannot be separated. Conversely, Horning and her co-authors from the University of Minnesota argue that the media reduces family engagement and shouldn't be viewed as a part of memory studies.
That's nice, but I read an article by Renee McCoy titled African American Elders, Culture, Traditions, and the Family Reunion. In it, McCoy tells us how family reunions are important rituals in families that contribute to the survival, health, and endurance of African American families. With family reunions, the families are able to maintain cultural heritage even through turbulent times. Family reunions also help strengthen and stabilize the family and build a strong foundation for the next generation. With the family reunions, the families tend to have the reunion in the state or city where the heads of the family were born at.
Well, how did you relate to this article and what you read? Do you have any connections to family reunions?
Yeah, like I know with my family, we have majority of our family reunions in Alabama because that's where our family started at. The events at the family reunions help the families remember home, as it is the place where they can spend time and create memories with close and distant relatives. Memories that are created at these family reunions are ones that will never be forgotten and will be told through all generations. Family reunions help the families remember where they came from and what home really is. I really agree with this article because when I go to family reunions, it makes me get a feeling of what my home really is, other than just the home I grew up in.
Wow, that was very insightful. I never thought about it that way, but I totally agree with you.
Well, since we're comparing our experience to what we've read, how do you guys think scholarly notions of home differ from our own and generate new theories of collective memory?
Jalynn, that's a good doggone question. I think the way they differ is through the familiar idea that home is where the heart is. For some, home isn't more of a physical place, but rather a physical state, where you feel at most comfortable and at peace. Home can be uprooted and changed, but there's always the stability to establish a new home.
Yeah, I really agree with the phrase home is where the heart is, because like coming to college, although this was my new home, my heart was back in Tampa. So that's what I always viewed my home as.
Well, Cam, I think that can go to say for a lot of us having multiple homes. When I was researching the idea of home and Black family traditions and gatherings, I came across an article describing the second annual Africa Day Parade in Harlem. In Barracoon, Kasula and his kinsmen established a town in Mobile, Alabama called Africatown. And just like the location of the parade was in an area in Manhattan called Little Africa. This parade was started by Africans to celebrate African heritage and culture. People showed pride for their countries and wore their traditional African garb. The article talked about how the parade acted as a bridge between newcomers to the U.S. from Africa and the people who have already established a home in the U.S. To me, this shows how although these people have uprooted their original homes and started anew, they brought along their culture and traditions to pass down to future generations.
Wow, that is so interesting. I never knew there was anything like an Africa town or a Little Africa existed until this class. I thought there were only like Chinatowns and Little Italys, but to know that African people also have a safe haven to cluster together to give them a piece of home away from home is enlightening and so inspiring.
Scholarly notions of home differ from our own in the way that they analyze the reasons that others determine where their home is. Some scholars connect home to the thought of how close the place is to their roots. This is an overanalyzation of the topic, when in fact most people base their home simply on where they feel most comfortable and loved. We all want to be somewhere where we can just kick back, feel stress-free, able to be ourselves without judgment. Storytelling in the African American family is one way that families come together in their homes in order to connect and develop a collective memory among themselves of their family history and traditions.
Storytelling is very important in my family. I remember as a child growing up, my mom would always tell me stories of my grandparents and the history of my ancestors. I feel like because of this, I've been able to keep my family history alive. And this is why I think storytelling is valuable in the African American community. It's a way for us to connect and appreciate a collective memory.
Well, you see, guys, some scholars will argue that storytelling in the African American family is a way to clear up misconceptions about the culture, when in fact, for most people, like us perhaps, it is nothing more than a way to bring families closer together. Scholars try to create this image of African Americans basing simple things off of the way that other people perceive them and feeling the need to prove those people wrong. They try to generate the theory that collective memory through storytelling has to be connected to the hardships endured by African Americans.
I find it very true that people connect home to where their roots are rather than just where they're comfortable. This connects to when we talk about family reunions, because even with the people that aren't raised where the family reunion is taking place, they still feel as though they're at home because that's where their roots are, where the family started and where they feel closer to home.
Wow, we've had a really good discussion. I've got one last question. Y'all ready?
Yes.
All right, so my question is, in what ways does the idea of home capture the memories behind the African American community collectively?
Wow, that's a really good question, Naya. Want to answer this one, Jalynn?
Yeah, I got you, Jayla. Well, we can also take a look at the ideas of home from an African's perspective because, that's where all of our roots are. In the article titled The Life of Salvation and Remaking of Home in East African Revival, written by Jason Bruner, he talks about the ideal family life, specifically in Uganda, and how religion and spiritual beliefs play a big role in establishing a family. He writes about Mary, a woman who had converted to a different type of Christianity in 1945 and had to organize her life and her home around new values that came from God-given knowledge.
Oh yeah, I read about Mary too. Mr. Bruner wrote about how she questioned her new salvation, questioning how she should dress, what she should eat, and more. He writes, and I quote, "The answers Mary and other Balokale revivalists gave to questions like these matter deeply, since revivalists hope to communicate their testimony by demonstrating the superiority of their new home life," end quote.
Isn't it so interesting how religion plays such a big role in Mary's view of home? According to Mr. Bruner, her salvation affected the way she cleaned her house and even the way she related to her family. Bruner quotes Mary saying, "The testimony must begin in the home." From this, we see how home is centered around religious values and that God, or our spiritual guidance, provides us with knowledge that helps us live our lives. The transformations in domestic patterns, such as the way Mary kept order in her life, begins with a personal testimony at home. Mary talking about these aspects of building her foundation at home are the memories she keeps to herself, and something I'm sure many Africans relate to when it comes to religion and home, probably even around the dinner table.
You know, that makes me think about my Sunday family dinners, because family dinner is a symbol of shared family life. It regularly brings the family members together to help contribute a healthy physical and mental state. At dinner, African American families perform different skills, either washing dishes, cleaning the tables, prepping the food, or even cooking. These skills are often initiated by the leader of the family, which also leads to rules. No electronics, no tardiness, no complaining, and no talking.
Well, what does a family meal mean to you personally?
I mean, a family meal represents so much. It's stability during the times of change. Having family dinner makes us cherish the time spent with each other. Eating together builds and strengthens bonds between family members. This tradition of family dinner may vary from family to family, but they still revolve around the same ideas of tradition and community that have been shared through collective memories through different generations of families.
In an article by Kelly D. Evans, she talks about how Sunday dinners are an important part of the African American culture. Family dinners help with the bonding of all generations in the family. When African American families think of home, Sunday dinner is a big part of the thought about home, just like Jalynn mentioned about what she misses about home. On Sunday dinners is when the family comes together and have dinners, but more than just the biological families are invited to the dinner. If you're part of the community, you're welcome to the Sunday dinner. African Americans as a culture view everyone as family, no matter where you come from. That's why family and home is a big part of the African American culture, because even if you aren't really a part of them, you know that you're always welcome.
Cam, that's a great way to wrap it up. Like I said before, home is where the heart is. Oral traditions, passing down from generation to generation. We have truly learned an abundant amount of information this semester. What we have shared about home today came from experiences we had with our families and places we've lived. But now we can relate all of these things to our new home at Howard.
You know, I really enjoy getting to know each and every one of y'all.
Me too, but I'm really ready to take a break and get back to Tampa with my palm trees. Aren't you guys ready to go back home?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Well, HU Class of 22, this concludes the Memories of Home podcast. Thanks for listening in. You guys have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.